This is a letter of encouragement to Timothy. In the passage I read, Timothy's charged to rekindle the gift of God that is within you. And it closed, guard the good treasure entrusted to you. What is this rekindling? What is this gift of God that needs rekindling? What is the good treasure that's entrusted to us? Our faith needs care. It needs attention. It needs guarding. We're vulnerable to external forces that make us doubt ourselves, that lets fears creep in, and the gospel all of a sudden has less power. So Paul says, rekindle the gift of God that is within you. Guard this good treasure that has been entrusted to you. In school, we challenge students to ask existential questions. We don't do that very much once we get older. We don't, at your jobs or when you're playing cards with friends or whatever, however you socialize, rarely do you ask them, okay, what's your purpose in life? Why are you here? Why do you exist? Do you know? How would you answer that question? Why are you here? What is your purpose? In high school, I identified my purpose with success. 10th grade, Carol Harris was my English teacher. Fantastic. We were in a portable. I had to write an essay about my purpose. And I heard that as in, what does success look like? And wrote an essay on success. This was actually one of those standard or state tests checking on our writing and how the school was doing. So I wrote about success, and it definitely had to do with accolades and money and power and influence and my plan for getting there. And was talking later that day with somebody telling me that I wrote about success, and I paused and realized I had spelled success probably 30 times in that essay with one C. And like that, I was not going to be a success. I was a failure. I was a fraud. I'd been exposed. All this confidence and cockiness. It's like, yeah, well, you might want to start with spelling success correctly. How we measure ourselves, our value, our worth, our purpose, can make us very vulnerable to something as silly as misspelling a word. Completely deflated. Well, surely our purpose is much deeper than things that can just be affected by, I don't know, the stock market or a company moving, or when things don't go so well with a friend or family. Our purpose has to have more resilience, or I believe it does have resilience, and that's what Paul is pointing to rekindle the gift of God. Timothy was called to go and share the gospel, this good news of Jesus Christ, and he's invited to be a part of something that was already going on. The purpose that we get to be a part of is not the church's purpose. It's not mine. It's not the sessions. we're joining in God's purpose. It was a reframe of how we talk about mission over the last 50 years. And of course, not surprisingly, it came from a developing country saying, maybe mission shouldn't be framed as churches going to another place as the way of the base understanding of mission. Rather, it is about God going to the world. Mission comes from the Latin word for send. And so we send missionaries. The first apostles are sent ones. That's the Greek there for send. But recall, God has been sending and going into the world from the beginning. In Christ, God sends God's Son. God is the missionary. God is the sending one. And in Christ sends the Spirit. And so the church exists for mission, not the other way around. And you and I are the subject and the object of mission. One of God's missions is you and you and you, and then we get to be a part of that. But God is always working on us as well. If you've been on a mission trip or labored intensely on some sort of project, you likely found that your own faith has grown, that you maybe were changed more than the people you were going to try to help. That is an example of you being the object of God's mission and at the same time the subject. My first mission trip was in West Virginia, and we put siding on a house that where the walls had slowly fallen away. It was too cold for the person to even live in the house. And wow, there was something very rewarding about just hammering all day and putting something tangible, that you could see where you were making a difference. And we would talk about kingdom building. We're building the kingdom, and that became very much about how much work I was accomplishing in the day. And it was satisfying. But I am constantly trying to pull myself away from measuring things based on how many boards go up or how many people show up for this particular thing or that thing. Our purpose is to live into our calling. Our calling. And that's not measured the way we measure everything else in life. When we're aligned with God, when we are seeking to do God's will, you are fulfilling your purpose. I'm finding myself coming back to this again and again this season. I think it's last couple of years, there's a bit of an existential crisis within that. What are we doing here? Not just at church, but asking the deeper question of how do I use my time so that it is purposeful? I've seen people spiral in this season because we were forced to decide and to evaluate how we spend our time. The children were hitting on one of the historical explanations for our reason for being in the Christian tradition. That we're purposed to be in this covenant relationship with the triune God. That you're purposed to glorify God and enjoy God forever. It's one of our basic tenets in the Reformed tradition. What is the chief end of humans? To glorify God and enjoy God forever. Your purpose is this divine fellowship that you're participating in right here and right now. You don't have to justify yourself or defend your purpose. You guard it. You hold it close to you. You know it to be true. You put kindling on it so it burns brighter. You do not let someone take it away. That your purpose is to participate and live and fellowship with God, who has claimed you. To hold on to that as a treasure. To see that the work is being done by God, that God is the missionary who is sending Jesus, and Jesus is sending the Spirit, and then we're invited as a church to be sent as well. When we rekindle a gift, when you rekindle a flame, it just takes a little bit at a time. Just reminders to one another that you're a child of God, you are beautiful. Our mission is to align with God's will. Rekindling is not throwing something huge on top of what is struggling. Instead, it is letting the Spirit move across embers, gently encouraging one another. Rivermont's mission has been in place for 30 years to know, grow, and go. To know Christ, to grow in our love, and then to go out empowered. We are participating in Missio Dei and God's reconciling work in the world. In our tradition, we also have a confession that names Christians called to be ambassadors. The Confession of 1967 says, Christ has called the church to this mission and given it the gift of the Holy Spirit. The church is entrusted with God's message of reconciliation and shares in God's labor of healing the enmities which separate people from God and from each other. The table today wants you to see that as God's mission. This is God's mission field for us today. The table, where we are the object of that mission, where God is coming and tearing down walls that separate of hostility and inviting people to the table where Christ is head. And here God is doing God's mission work on you, where you are transformed, where you are reminded that you belong. This is the mission field sometimes. It's part of why we're here. It's to be reminded to be grounded in that truth that your purpose is eternal fellowship with God, that you have been claimed by God. Paul writes, "Join with me in suffering for the gospel, relying on the power of God who saved us and called us with a holy calling, not according to our works, but according to God's own purpose and grace." Take comfort in hearing and knowing that you are a part of what God is doing, that your calling is from God, who desires you to join in the building up of a world where there is no more pain or sorrow, where all can come to this table. Leslie Newbegin writes, "Mission is not just something that the church does. It is something that is done by the Spirit, who is himself the witness who changes both the world and the church, who always goes before the church in its missionary journey." Friends, the Spirit is here as we gather. Christ is here as we gather together. God's mission is going forward. We're blessed to be a part of it. Help us to guard the good treasure entrusted to us. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.